I have started.
ॐ यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तंहदेवम् आत्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्तिः 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 गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः गुरवे सर्वलोकानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः. Right. So last week we have finished on 300 and we should start on 301. Okay. Does anyone have any comments, questions, any need for a discussion, or shall we straight away go to the next sloka? Okay. So, right. So no questions. So I presume we can move on. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. 301. So please repeat after me. Yo va pure
यो वा पुरे
Pray.
sohamiti pratitah
सोऽहमिति प्रतीतः
buddhya prakliptah
बुद्ध्या प्रक्लुप्तः
tamasa atimudhaya
तमसा
तमसातिमूढया
tasyaiva nisheshataya
तस्यैव निःशेषतया
vinashe
विनाशे
brahmatmabhavah
ब्रह्मात्मभावः
pratibandha shunyah.
प्रतिबन्धशून्यः
Oh, yova pure sohamiti pratito buddhya prakliptas tamasati mudhaya tasyaiva nisheshataya vinashe brahmatma bhavah pratibandha shunyah. Okay, so this is actually a very peculiar construction because the sentences are not actually complete grammatically speaking, but then it's full of nouns and adjectives. There is no verb actually. Even the verb that comes is in an adjectival form. Anyway, that's for Sanskrit grammar aware people. So, Pure, Yova, Pure. Puram means a city or a village or whatever you want. It's a place where people live. And the Puram here refers to the body, the physical body that we have. In the Shastras, it is often compared to a city. In those days, cities would typically be in a fort or a fortress. So the fortress will have specific openings. It will have 4 or 6 or 8 doors. Gate. Sorry?
No, 9 doors with Pure with the 9 doors.
Yeah. So that is where I'm coming to. So in Bhagavad Gita, there is a shloka that says, Navadware Pure Dehi, Naiva Kurvan na Karayan. And then in Kathopanishad, it says, Purameka Dashadwaram. So there are 9 openings or 11 openings, depending on which one you refer to. So what are those 9 openings? The 9 openings are the 2 eyes, the 2 nostrils, the 2 ears, 1 mouth. That makes it 7. Correct? So 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth, and then the excretion, the point, the opening for excretion and the opening for procreation. These are the 9 holes, 9 gateways. And when Kathopanishad says Puram Ekadashadwaram, what are the 2 additional holes? So there is this navel, where the umbilical cord is attached to the body when the fetus is inside the, in the uterus. So the umbilical cord, that's actually an opening, but once the child is born, that opening is closed, but it is still an opening. And then there is an opening at the top of the head, which is called Brahmarandhram. That Brahmarandhram also gets closed shortly after the birth or shortly before the birth, whichever way you want to see it, because apparently the child also receives a lot of nutrients through diffusion through the top of the head. And that's why for a newborn baby, the top of the head will be very soft. And then slowly, as the child becomes older, that portion becomes harder and harder. But there is still a small opening, because if you look at the skull, human skull, the top portion is called cranium, and it is actually consisting of 4 or 5 bones which kind of mesh with each other. And where these bones meet, there is actually a very small opening that's called Brahmarandhram. And for the yogis, that's a very important thing, because when the yogi eventually leaves the body, he is supposed to leave the body through the Brahmarandhram, the top opening. So anyway, 9 holes, 11 holes, whichever way you want to take it, the word Puram refers to the body. Okay. So Pure means in the body. Soham iti pratitah. Soham saha aham iti. That is a reference to the Brahma, this Mahavakyam, Aham Brahmasmi. Aham saha. Saha here refers to Brahman. Aham means I. So Soham is another way of saying Aham Brahmasmi. That's a Mahavakyam. That is equating the Jivatma and the Paramatma. So Pratitaha means available or experienced, manifest, present. All those things can be taken Pratitaha. So that is, this first line is a reference to the Brahma Chaitanyam. Yova Pure Sohamiti Pratitaha. That Brahma Chaitanyam which is available in the body, in the form of the I feeling. I as in the alphabet I, not EYE. Yeah. I as in Aham, me in Marathi, or ma in Hindi. That is Aham. And then second line, Buddhya prakliptaha tamasa atimudhaya. Now, this Chaitanyam is hidden from direct experience or direct knowledge by the mind. And that mind, here it is given an adjective tamasa. Tamasa ati mudhaya. Adi mudha means ignorance, the ignorant one. So the mind here actually refers to the ahankara, because all these shlokas deal with ahankara. So the buddhi here is actually a reference to the ahankara. Prakliptaha means it is hidden or covered. Covered, not really covered physically. When we say it is covered or hidden, what it means is it distracts our attention from the Chaitanya. Whenever you are very active mentally, or mentally agitated, or mentally very alert, you are paying attention to your thoughts. And thoughts are nothing but changes happening in the mind. So basically, when you are focusing on thoughts, you are focusing on the mind. And when you are focusing on the mind, your attention is drawn away from the awareness. Which is why in meditation, we try to focus our attention after initially you start observing the mind, but then you have to turn the attention inward and try to focus on the observer observing the mind. Yeah, that is the act of meditation. So when we say the mind covers the Chaitanyam, it means the mind is distracting you from paying attention to Chaitanya. That is how you have to understand, because the mind cannot really cover the Chaitanyam, because Chaitanyam is infinite and mind is finite. So a finite thing cannot cover an infinite thing. So here the word cover has to be understood within quotes, that by distracting you and taking your awareness away from the Chaitanyam, you are being the Chaitanyam is being covered as it were. Okay, so that is second line. So the Chaitanyam which is available in the body is actually covered or hidden by the tamogunam filled, ignorant filled mind or ahankaram. Okay, now third line. Tasyaiva nisheshataya vinashe. Okay, now this vinasham means destruction. Nisheshataya means without any remnant remaining, completely, comprehensively. So what are we talking about? Which destruction are we talking about? We are not talking about the destruction of Chaitanyam. We are talking about the destruction of the mind. And this also has to be carefully understood. You cannot really destroy the mind. As long as a person is alive, the mind will be there and the ahankaram will be there. So ahankara cannot be destroyed completely. So when Acharya says vinashe, what it has to be, the way it has to be understood is, it has to be reduced to the minimum, that all the unwanted ahankara is removed and only the bare minimum necessary ahankara remains. It is a weakened ahankara. It is not physically destroyed or totally destroyed ahankara. It is a very, very weakened ahankara is here. Nisheshataya vinashe. Then Brahmatma bhavaha pratibandha shunya. So pratibandham means obstruction or obstacle. And pratibandha shunya means free from obstruction, free from obstacle. What is free from obstacle? Brahmatma bhavaha. So the manifestation of the Chaitanyam or the availability of Chaitanyam for you to appreciate it, that becomes possible when the mind is kept under control, when the mind is weakened, when the ahankara is weakened by and large, the obstacle to perceiving Chaitanyam is removed. That is how one has to understand. Okay, so this is again, a repetition of, the same idea that we have seen in so many previous shlokas. Only the way it has been expressed is different. And so if there are any points which are not, understood, which are not easy to understand, if I have to repeat something, please let me know. Then I'll know what to repeat and how to repeat.
Could you please repeat this pratibandha shunya?
Yeah, pratibandham means obstacle.
Obstacle. Okay.
Pratibandha shunya means free from obstacle. Shunyam means absence. Shunyam means absence. Pratibandha shunya means free from obstacle. So what is the obstacle? The obstacle is the ahankara.
Yes.
Because as long as the ahankara is predominant, you are only paying attention to the ahankara and the needs of ahankara.
Yeah.
So there is no time for you to focus on the Chaitanya.
Yes.
So by weakening the ahankara, you are removing the obstacle that stops you from paying attention to the Chaitanya.
Right.
That is the meaning.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Any other question?
Sir, sorry, sir. The weekend ahankara means I am there, but the decisions are not from the jiva side. Do you mean like that, sir?
See, I don't want to bring the jiva here because
Okay.
the jiva in Advaita Vedanta is the reflected consciousness.
Mm.
Okay, the jiva, if you want to use the term jiva, let us be clear what is this jiva. This jiva is the reflected consciousness. Reflected in what? Reflected in the mind. Okay, and it is the jiva is responsible for the mind to come to life. So once the mind has come to life, and when I say mind, it includes ahankara. So once ahankara has come to life, the reflected consciousness has completed its job. So it kind of recedes into the background and the ahankara becomes dominant. And when you say ahankara is dominant, what happens is you are swayed by lot of emotions. Okay, so your all your outlook and all your shall we say reactions or responses are all driven by emotions
No.
and
Okay.
driven by desire. All those things take over. So it gives rise to rajoguna.
Mm.
Okay, and when we say weakened ahankara, what we mean is we reduce the rajoguna activities to a bare minimum and keep the mind calm and free from emotion. So only when you are calm in your mind, you have the bandwidth or the tendency to answer these questions: who am I and what am I actually doing and all that. So it allows the sattva guna to take over, and the sattva guna is then responsible to dwell over the teachings and focus on the chaitanyam and understand that I am not this ahankara, but I am the chaitanyam. So that the mahavakyam knowledge has to be brought to the forefront, which is possible only with sattva guna. And so when we say weakening of the ahankara, we are really saying weakening of the rajoguna and tamoguna and giving predominance to sattva guna. You can
Beautiful.
understand the weakening in that sense also.
Beautiful, sir. Thank you, sir. So free from emotions and putting down the rajo and tamas so that the sattva can take place.
Correct.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Because finally, what is nididhyasanam? Nididhyasanam is the repetitive, repeated memorization or remembrance of the Mahavakyam teachings, which is a function of the Sattva Guna.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Right. So I hope nobody else has any questions. Can we go to 302?
Weakening of ahankara can, I think, also be explained in a manner that you reduce it to that extent that it is there only to carry out, so to say, Sharira Yatra.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So you do need some amount of ahankara to carry on with your life. So you cannot really completely get rid of ahankara 100%. So that minimum ahankara that you need to carry on with life in a sattvic way is what we mean by weakened ahankara.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, G.
Right. We'll go to 302. Brahmananda Nidhihi.
Brahmananda Nidhi.
Mahabalavata.
Mahabalavata.
Ahankara Ghorahina.
Ahankara Ghorahina.
Samveshtya.
Samveshtya.
Atmani Rakshyate.
Atmani Rakshyate.
Gunamayaihi.
Gunamayaihi.
Chandaihi.
Chandaihi.
Tribhirmastakaihi.
Tribhirmastakaihi.
Vijnanakhya Mahasina.
विज्ञातसमासीना
श्रुतिमता
श्रुतिमता
विच्छिद्य
विच्छिद्य
शीर्षत्रयम्
शीर्षत्रयम्
निर्मूल्य
निर्मूल्य
अहिम् इमम्
अहिमम्
निधिं सुखकरम्
निधिं सुखकरम्
धीरः अनुभोक्तुं क्षमः.
क्षमः.
So, Brahmananda Nidhir Mahabalavatahankara Ghorahina Samveshtyatmani Rakshate Gunamayais Chandais Tribhirmastakaihi Vijnanakhya Mahasina Shrutimata Vichidya Shirshatrayam Nirmulyahimimam Nidhim Sukhakaram Dhiro Anubhoktum Kshamaha. Okay, so here the Acharya wants to give an example that many of us can relate to, and maybe we have also seen something like this in some movie somewhere. Yeah. Okay. So the imagery or the example that the Acharya is giving in this sloka, there is a treasure. There is a treasure somewhere. And in our tradition, in our shastras, wherever there's a treasure, it is typically protected by snake. There is a big snake which will be guarding the treasure. And at least in Tamil and Telugu, there was a movie producer called Vittalacharya long back. He would produce all these fantasy kind of movies like Patala Bhairavi and all that. I don't know how many of you saw any of those movies. So there, typically the hero will go to some loka somewhere and he'll go in search of one gem or stone or something like that. And then in the climax scene, he will have a snake with whom he'll have a fight. Okay, so this is a very popular imagery. So there is a treasure and it is guarded by a snake, and it is not some ordinary snake. It's a huge snake with 3 heads. Okay, Shirsha Trayam. Tribhir Mastakaihi. That's the second line, last word. Mastaka is a head. 3. Tribhir Mastakai means 3-headed snake. Okay, and that snake is a huge snake, and imagine the treasure in some box, some kind of a wooden box or metal box or whatever, and the snake has kind of coiled itself around the box so that you can't even approach the box without killing the snake. Okay, and then the spiritual seeker who is in search of the treasure, the treasure is nothing but Brahmananda. So the first line says, Brahmananda Nidhihi. The word Nidhi means treasure. Brahmananda Nidhi. So Brahmananda here is compared to a treasure. And Brahmananda means what? It is the Jnana Phalam. It is the result of knowing and understanding the Mahavakyam, whereby the seeker realizes that he is Purna, and that Purnatvam gives rise to that happiness. So that is how you have to understand Brahmanandam. So that Brahmananda treasure is covered and guarded by Ghora Ahihi. Ahihi means snake. Ghora means fearful, fearsome. Okay, Balavata. Balavata means it's very strong. It's not some small rope-like snake. It's a huge snake. Yeah. And Samveshtya Atmani Rakshyate. Rakshyate means to protect. The protecting is for the treasure. Samveshtya means to surround itself, to coil itself. Okay. Gunamayahi Chandaihi Tribhir Mastakaihi. So the 3 heads or the 3 hoods are basically the 3 gunas. Gunamayahi. Sattvaguna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna. So there are 3 gunas. So this Ahankara snake has three hoods, which are the three gunas. Okay. Then Vijnanakhya Mahasina. Asihi means a sword. Maha Asihi is a huge sword. And what is that huge sword? Vijnanam. And here the word Vijnanam actually refers to Nididhyasana. Normally the word Vijnanam would mean knowledge. And in Bhagavad Gita, the seventh chapter, it says Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Jnana Vijnana Yoga, there the word Vijnanam is used to denote Brahma Jnanam. The normal Jnanam, the Jnana Vijnana, that first Jnana is Aparavidya, or what is called worldly knowledge. That is Jnanam, and Vijnanam is Brahma Vidya or Atma Vidya. That is Bhagavad Gita. And here the word Vijnanam, even though it can be called Jnanam in the sense Atma Jnanam, but here it is better to use the meaning of Nididhyasanam because we are dealing with the Nididhyasanam section. So here the Nididhyasanam practice is compared to a sword, powerful sword. And how is that sword? Shrutimata. Shrutimata means it is based on Shruti or based on the Upanishadic Mahavakyam. Then Vichidya Shirshatrayam. Vichidya means to cut off. Shirshatrayam means three-headed snake. All the three heads have to be cut off. So even the Sattva Guna has to be overcome. No, that's what in the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says Gunatita. Gunatita means he should overcome Sattva Guna also. And I think we talked about the necessity to overcome Sattva Guna in one of the earlier classes. So I don't want to go there again. So what we have to understand is it is not sufficient to overcome Tamoguna and Rajoguna. One has to overcome Sattva Guna also. And I think in one of the earlier slokas we saw, Tamodvabhyam. There was one sloka in 285 or 290 somewhere that Tamoguna has to be overcome by the combination of Rajoguna and Sattva-guna. Then Rajoguna has to be overcome by Sattva-guna. And then Sattva-guna also has to be overcome by distancing oneself. Sattva-guna cannot be destroyed, but one has to distance oneself because Sattva-guna also belongs to the mind. And you have to understand that I am not my mind, so the guna doesn't belong to me. So all this logic we saw in the earlier sections. So I'm just reminding you about it. So Vichidya Shirshatrayam, the three-headed snake, Ahankara, has to be cut and destroyed. Nirmulya Ahimimam. Nirmulya Ahim. Ahi is again Sarpa or Ahihi. The first line also has Ahihi, snake. So Nirmulya means by destroying. Imam Nidhim Sukhakaram Dhiraha Anubhoktum Kshamaha. Anubhoktum is to enjoy. Anubhoktum Kshamaha means he is now capable of enjoying. Okay, Sukhakaram. Sukhakaram means happily, full of happiness, enjoying, full of enjoyment. So the Brahmananda treasure can be enjoyed by the spiritual seeker only by destroying or overcoming the Ahankara snake, which has three heads, which are the three gunas. So this is just an imagery. The message is the same. Ahankara is the enemy to enjoying Brahmanandam. So one has to overcome Ahankara. So that's the message. Any questions? Can we move on to 303?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
So again here, to overcome Ahankara means you have to, you have to follow the previous sloka.
Yeah. See, yeah. Wherever you have this Mano Nasha or Ahankara Nasha and all that, it is not complete destruction, it is reduction, minimization. That's all.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
That is consistently to be applied.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So 303. Yavadva
Yavadva
yatkinchit
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 vishadosha spurtihi
Vishadosha Spurtihi
Spurtihi
asti chet
asti
Asti
Chet
dehe
Dehe
katham
katham
arogyaya bhavet
Arogyaya Bhavet
tadvat
Tatvat
Tatvat
ahantapi
Ahantapi
yogino muktyai.
yogino
Yogino
Okay. Yavadva yatkinchit vishadosha spurtirasti cheddehe katham arogyaya bhavet tadvad ahantapi yogino muktyai. So here the example is when you become sick because of some infection, or let us say because of some food poisoning. Very often when you go and eat in some restaurant, where the food is not really fresh or not very clean, you can get into food poisoning, and then you suffer from diarrhea and vomiting for a few days, and then gradually it comes down. So let's say you got food poisoned. As long as even there is a small amount of the toxin in the body, you cannot feel completely healthy. Okay, that's why, let's say you suffered for 5 days, the suffering will be maximum in the first 2 days, and then you went to a doctor and took some medicines, and then gradually the suffering came down. But even on the 5th day, you will still not feel completely healthy. There is a small amount of problem which you kind of perceive, and only when you are completely cured of all the toxin, you are then able to say, yes, I am all right now. So the Acharya wants to say that the ahankara is like the toxin that caused you the food poisoning. Even as long as there is a small amount of toxin in the body, you cannot feel healthy. Exactly the same way, as long as there is even a small amount of ahankara, you cannot enjoy the Brahmananda. Again, you have to remember that small amount of toxin in the food poisoning case will cause problem, but here you need a very small amount of ahankara. So when you say small amount of ahankara should be removed, it is the amount above the minimum required. So you have to somehow adjust it mathematically in your mind. As I said, you cannot completely get rid of ahankara, so there will be a certain amount of minimum ahankara, but anything above that minimum ahankara is to be discarded. So that is the example. So we'll go to the word by word meaning. Yavatva. Yavat means as long as. As long as. Yavadva. Yatkinchit. Yatkinchit means even a small amount. Vishadosha spurtihi. Vishadosha means the infection because of the toxin or the toxicity. Purtihi means experience. Asti chet dehe. Imagine there is a toxicity in the body. Katham arogyaya bhavet. Katham means how. Arogyaya means complete health. Bhavet means can be taken. So how can you call yourself healthy? As long as there is a small amount of toxin still infecting your body. Tadvat. Tadvat means in the same way. Ahanta api. Ahanta here refers to ahankara. Api means also. Yogino muktyai. Yoginaha, the spiritual seeker. Muktyai means here for liberation. So liberation is the same as Anubhavam of Brahmanandam. So Brahmananda Spurti is also Mukti, Jivan Mukti. Yeah. So here the word Mukti does not mean Videha Mukti. So here the word Mukti should be understood as Jivan Mukti. So the yogi or the spiritual seeker is still alive and experiencing the Brahmanandam. So that Brahmanandam enjoyment is possible only by reducing the toxicity called ahankara to the minimum. That is the 303. So practically the same idea, only the examples are different. So I hope it was not complicated. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions? No?
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Right. So then I think we can move on to the next shloka 304. 304. Ahamotyanta nivritya.
Ahamotyanta nivritya
Nivritya
Tatkrita
Tat-krita
Tatkrital
nana vikalpa samhritya.
nana
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 vikalpa
Vikalpa Samhritya
samhritya
Pratyak tattva
pratyak
pratyaktatva
Pratyak Tattva
Tattva
vivekat
Viveka
viveka
idam aham asmiti
idam aham
idam
asmiti
aham asmiti
Ahasmiti
vindate tattvam.
vindate
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 tattvam.
Tattvam.
Ahamotyanta nivritya tatkrita nana vikalpa samhritya pratyak tattva vivekad idam aham asmiti vindate tattvam. So ahamaha, the word ahamaha means ahankara here. Atyanta nivritya. Atyanta means complete or absolute. Nivritti means getting rid of. So again, it is ahankara nivritti. Reducing the ahankara to the bare minimum. Atyanta nivritti should be understood as reducing it to bare minimum. Yeah. Tatkrita nana vikalpa samhritya. Okay. So tatkrita refers to caused by that, and that refers to the ahankara. So nana vikalpa, nana means all kinds of, multiple types of. Vikalpa, vikalpa means division or plurality. Okay. Samhriti means again destruction. Okay. Nana vikalpa samhritya means by destroying the duality or multiplicity that is caused by the ahankara. Now this has to be understood very carefully. See, when the jnani, or rather when the ajnani becomes a jnani, he will still continue to see the world. It is not that, the world will disappear for his eyes and he will see everything as Brahman. No, that's not how it is. The jnani will also see the world as the world. Okay. But in his mind, the understanding will be very strong that what I am seeing, even though it appears to be multiple different entities, it is Brahman only. That intellectual vision is available to the jnani. And that is what we mean by Vikalpa Samhriti. So when we say Vikalpa Samhriti, one should not imagine that the jnani will not see the different people around. No. Jnani will definitely see, Rama as Rama, Krishna as Krishna, Govinda as Govinda. Okay. He will see people as people. But in and through all the experience of this multiplicity, he will know that this is all just an appearance of the same Brahman. Okay. Like in Bhagavad Gita, there was one shloka. What was that? I have to look into the book. I keep forgetting the first line of that shloka. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane Gavi Hastini, Shunichaiva Shvapakesha Pandidaha Samadarshina. Okay, so that shloka one has to remember that. So there, Bhagavad Gita says, a jnani looks at everybody with the same eye or the same perception. Samadarshina. Samadarshi means he looks at everybody as equal. And what does he look as equal? Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmane. So a Brahmana who is very well learned, that is one entity. Gavi is a cow. Hastini, an elephant. Then Shuni Chaiva, Shuni is a dog. Then Shvapakaha means one who eats a dog. That is a Chandala. So there is a range of things that Krishna lists and says, a jnani sees all of them as the same. Okay. So what that means is, the jnani sees the Brahman in all of them. So he knows that the dog eater and the Brahmana from an external appearance are not the same because they have different bodies. But in and through those bodies, the Brahman or the Chaitanyam or the life principle that pervades them is the same. So that is the Samadarshanam that the jnani has, and that is here in a different word. The Acharya says, Nana Vikalpa Samhritya. That Nana Vikalpa Samhritya here has to be equated to the Samadarshanam of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, is that too much to understand? Is that clear?
Clear, sir. I was also waiting for the first line so that I can follow you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so that is the first line. Ahamotyanta nivritya tatkrita nana vikalpa samhritya. Then pratyak tattva vivekat. Pratyak means inside. Tattvam is the reality or the essence. So here the word pratyak tattvam refers to the Atma Chaitanyam. Vivekat. Vivekam here actually refers to the jnanam itself. Because normally when we say vivekam, it means to discriminate, to differentiate. And we normally use the word vivekam to say Atma Anatma Vivekam. So how do you differentiate Atma from Anatma? In that context, we use the word Vivekam, but in a very special case, here the word Vivekam actually can be used as Jnanam itself. Because in the first line, the Ahankara has been removed and the duality has been eliminated intellectually. Now what remains is Atma only. So that is, that differentiation has already happened in the first line. So the second line we can take Viveka to be Jnanam. Pratyak Tattva Vivekat Idam Ahamasmiti. Idam means Brahma Chaitanyam. Ahamasmiti. So this is again a Mahavakyam in a different way. Aham Brahmasmi is being given here as Idam Ahamasmiti. In the previous shloka we saw Soham. You know, we saw 301, I think. We saw Soham iti. That Soham iti idea is here given as Idam Aham Asmiti. Idam refers to Brahman. You know, one has to remember the mantra here. Purna Madaha, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachate. That Purnam Adaha, there, that Adaha refers to Brahman. Here the word Idam refers to Brahman. That's the only difference. Okay. Idam Aham Asmiti. This Brahman is none other than myself. Okay. Vindate Tattvam. In this manner, the yogi or the jnani understands the reality. Tattvam. Tattvam means the essential teaching, the truth. Vindate means to get or to comprehend, to understand. Okay, so by reducing the ahankara and by understanding that the multiplicity or duality that you see is nothing but an illusion, by acquiring that samadarshanam of the Bhagavad Gita 5th chapter, and by then turning the attention to Brahma Chaitanyam and understanding that this Brahma Chaitanyam is my true nature, idam aham asmi iti, that truth, reality is understood. Vindate tattvam. Okay. Again, not any new teaching, it's the same old teaching in different words. Okay. Was that clear? Do we need any more additional explanation?
No, thank you.
No, sir.
That's
Thank you.
fine. Thank you.
Okay. So 305. So this is a big shloka actually. 4 lines are there. Ahankare kartari.
Ahankare kartari.
Ahankare kartari.
Ahamiti matim.
Ahamiti matim.
Ahamiti matim.
Muncha sahasa.
Muncha sahata.
Vikaratmani.
Vikaratmani.
Atma pratiphala jushi.
Atma
Atma
pratiphala
jushi.
Swasthiti mushi.
swasthiti mushi.
Mushi.
Yadadhyasat.
Yadadhyasat
Prapta.
prapta
Jani mriti jara.
jani mriti jara
Dukkha bahula.
dukkha bahula
Pratichaha.
pratichaha
Chinmurtehe.
chinmurtehe
Tava sukhatanoho.
tava sukhatanoho
Samsritiriyam.
samsritiyam.
Samsritihi iyam.
Oh, samsritihi iyam.
So when you combine that, it becomes samsritiriyam. But if it's a tongue twister, you can say samsritihi iyam.
Samsritihi iyam.
Yeah. So ahankare kartaryahamiti matim muncha sahasa vikaratmanyatma pratiphala jushi swasthiti mushi yadadhyasat prapta janimriti jara dukkha bahula pratichas chinmurte stava sukhatanoho samsritiriyam. Okay. So ahankare kartari. Kartari. Ahankare. Ahankare means in the ahankara. Kartari means in the karta. Karta means a doer. And ahankara's role is very often manifest as the doer. You know, I achieved this. You know, I am a great champion, or I am a great orator, or I'm a very charming person. I can charm anybody. So all those things, it's all connected with what one is capable of doing. Accomplishments, achievements. What do we write in our CV? We write all our achievements in the CV. Whether it is the degrees that you got, whether the universities that you went to, or whether the certifications that you acquired, or whether the jobs, companies in which you worked, the roles in which you worked, all that entire CV, 5 pages, 10 pages, whatever, is what? All accomplishments, all activities that you did in the past. So the karta is the most prominent phase of the ahankara. So the acharya here says kartari, in the doer. Okay. Aham iti matim muncha sahasa. Aham iti mati means that attachment, that I am the doer. That kartari ahamiti matim is the sense of achievement. In the summary last week that Paddy sir shared, he used the word agency. That word agency is a very appropriate word. So we all have this attachment to our doership, and then we identify ourselves as the doer. Even the act of driving a car, what do you say? I'm a driver. So there the emphasis is on the action of driving. Or if you are a cricketer, you call yourself a batsman or a bowler. So what is a batsman doing? He is batting. What's a bowler doing? He is bowling. So all the identifications are with the actions. So here the Acharya says, Aham iti matim muncha. Muncha means give up. Be free from. Sahasa. Sahasa means immediately, urgently, rapidly, without losing time. Sahasa means to do something abruptly. And here what it means is drop it like a hot potato. If you say that in English, it's like saying drop it like a hot potato. So this self-identification as a doer, you have to drop, and drop it fast. Why? Vikaratmani Atma Pratiphala Jushi Swasthiti Mushi. These are all adjectives to Ahankara. The second line, all the words in the second line are basically further adjectives of the Ahankara mentioned in the first line. What is that? Vikaratmani. Vikaratmani means in the entity that is subject to change. Vikaram. Vikaram means change. Vikaratma means that which is whose nature is to change. Your ahankara will keep changing. You cannot do the same thing for a long time. You have to do something different. So even the act of doing is subject to change, and then you do different things, because you do the same thing for some time, you get bored. So you want a change. So by doing different things, you are still changing. That is vikaratmani. Then Atma Pratiphala Jushi. Now, this Pratiphalam here has a very special meaning. Normally, the word Pratiphalam means when you do somebody a favor and that person gives you a return favor, that return favor is called Pratiphalam. Okay, but here the word Pratiphalam is used in a very special meaning, that it is a reflection. So, Atma Pratiphala means that ahankara is nothing but a reflection of the true nature, which is Brahman. So it's a reflected consciousness. So the ahankara essentially operates as a live entity only because of the presence of the reflected consciousness, and that is here referred here as Pratiphala Jushi. The word Jushi means associated with. So the ahankara, which is nothing but a reflection of your true, by saying reflection, the Acharya wants to tell you that it is not satyam, it is mithya. It does not have an independent existence. It depends on the chaitanyam for its existence. So therefore it is mithya. So that mithyatvam is also pointed. And swasthiti mushi. So the word mushi, the word mush actually means to steal, and that is why the rats are called mushika, because the rats have this habit of picking up small things and taking them away. And if there is a small item that you are finding missing, and if it is found in some hole somewhere, it's because the rat might have taken it and hidden it there. So swasthiti here means your true nature, and swasthiti mushi refers to the ahankara, which actually robs you of your true nature, or the robs you of the knowledge of your true nature. How does it rob you? By turning your attention to ahankara and turning it away from chaitanyam. That is the way in which ahankara robs you of your true nature. It's a notional, figurative way of putting it. Okay. So these are all adjectives to ahankara. Okay. Then even the second, third line, first word, no, even the third line is full of adjectives. The adjective list doesn't stop. Yet adhyasat prapta. Adhyasat prapta means it is a result of superimposition. Okay, I think I described what exactly is superimposition in one of the earlier classes. So superimposition means that which is not really its property, but it is a borrowed property, unreally borrowed property. The examples we gave were, rope snake, or shell silver, or mirage water, or what was other superimposition? The crystal which is close to a red or blue flower, So the crystal as it is has no color, but because of a flower kept nearby, it acquires the color of that flower. But the color doesn't really belong to the crystal. Like that, the ahankara is basically a superimposition of maya or anatma on atma. So yad adhyasat prapta. Then jani mriti jara dukkha bahula. So jani means janma, mriti means maranam, jara means old age, dukkha means sorrow. So these four together describe samsara. You are born, you go through old age, and in old age you have a lot of suffering, so you have dukkham, and then you eventually die, and then you are born again, and this cycle goes on and on. So punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, that is here described as jani mriti jara dukkha bahula. Bahula means plenty of. Plenty of. See, normally the word bahula can be translated as plenty when we are talking about good things. When you have plenty of food or plenty of wealth, that plenty is okay for bahula. But here we are talking about something which is not so good. So bahula here means full of. Extremely painful, set of qualities coming in lot of waves. So I don't want to use the word abundance for bahula, but it is just that full of dukkham. Okay, it's painful and full of dukkham. Pratichaha chinmurtehe tava sukhatanoho samsritiriyam. So pratichaha means the inner essence, that is atma chaitanyam. Chinmurtehe, chinmurtihi means chit swarupam, the chaitanyam that is consciousness in nature. That consciousness which really does not have any janma, marana and dukkham and all that, it ends up going through this samsara in the form of an illusion or a confusion. That is the word. Samsriti means samsara. The word samsriti means samsara, which is actually explained by the jani mriti jara dukkha of the third line. And sukha means full of happiness, that is anandam, satchidanandam. So chaitanyam is really speaking satchidananda swarupam, but this satchidananda swarupam, because of the superimposition of the anatma in the form of ahankara, ends up going through the samsara and goes through a lot of suffering, as though the suffering is not for the chaitanyam, but the suffering is for the manas and ahankara. But because of the ignorance, the ajnani thinks that he is going through the suffering. So this is actually the essence of the teaching. We all go through some pain at some point. Even after you become the jnani, there is no guarantee that suffering will not be there. Okay, so let us be clear. Even a jnani will go through suffering if that is part of his prarabdham. But the point is, when the jnani is going through suffering, he will simply create a distance between his true nature and the body mind complex and witness the suffering as a sakshi. That is the difference between a jnani suffering and an ajnani suffering. So this shloka has to be understood from that point of view. Okay, I'm not sure if I really did full justice to this shloka, but we are now past 9 o'clock. So if there is something to be continued, maybe we can continue in the next class. Maybe we'll revisit this shloka next class at the beginning and then proceed with the next shloka. Are there any questions so far? Or either 305 or for any of the previous shlokas?
Not really.
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, please think about whatever I said for 305, and if you still think that something has to be covered more elaborately, let me know at the beginning of next class. We will touch that and then move on to 306. Okay?
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
So, we will chant the closing shlokas and conclude the class. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate Sarvesham Swastirбhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarvepi Sukhinas Santu Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukhabhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Namaste.
Thank you.